Good morning, everybody. Despite what it may look like, it is not evening in Annapolis, but it is morning in Columbia, everybody. Today is Sunday, April 23rd, and you are watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. My name is Bill Woodcock.
And I'm Steve Hunt. Good morning, everybody.
And we would like to inform you that after today's edition of Forward Maryland, there are only five, yes, count them, five episodes left before our grand finale episode on the Sunday of Memorial Day weekend, whenever the hell that is. I believe it's May 28th, Steve. So keep your calendar open that day.
That's right. Must-see TV, forget the MASH finale, forget the Cheers finale, forget the Newhart finale, which might have been the best of the bunch. You can definitely forget the Seinfeld finale and the one for the Sopranos. Don't miss this finale.
Seinfeld finale was stupid. And I mean, I never watched an episode of Seinfeld at all, but I just remember hearing about it and it was stupid. Also a very good finale, the St. Elsewhere finale.
Oh, that one, that another, it was all a dream deal.
Yes, that was the one. It was all in a snow globe.
Well, they did a better job in Dallas.
And we cannot forget the Homicide: Life on the Street finale, the 2-hour TV movie. That was quality.
I will say St. Elsewhere did a whole better job with it was actually a dream than Dallas did when they brought Bobby Ewing back. So I will at least give St. Elsewhere credit for that. But again, the Newhart one with the Suzanne Plachette drop was epic.
That was great.
That was brilliant, man.
That one was great. But we have, I mean, and I'm very tempted to riff on Bob Newhart, who's 93 years old and still on Facebook going, well, what exactly is all of this? But we have a lot to talk about today. So, Steve, it looks now like Tuesday this week is the big day. President Biden will announce his run for re-election. We know that he will be contested in the Democratic primary by the likes of Marianne Williamson, who ran in 2020. And this week, the announcement of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., noted anti-vaxxer, noted conspiracy theorist, noted, should we just say nutball, and sister and brother to Maryland's former Lieutenant Governor, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. So there will be a Democratic primary, but it looks like Joe is in. And Steve, I heard Bill Maher last night had a really entertaining time last evening down in National Harbor. And he made this comment about Joe. I can't, of course, imitate Bill, but I can say that, he said, Biden has not done a bad job. In fact, he's done pretty much what he set forth to do. He's been successful, but you can't tell Democrats that. Though you ask them and they'll say, oh, yeah, he's doing a good job. And should he run for re-election? Oh, hell no. No, that's the last thing he should do. Steve, but however, polling is showing that the number of Democrats who think Biden should run for re-election is up. It's gone from 37% in January to 47% this month. Steve, what are your thoughts on the pending re-election announcement of POTUS 46?
Good. And to Democrats,
that was so rousing.
Yeah. And to Democrats out there, wake the fuck up. Okay. And Bill, I'm glad you mentioned Bill Maher, because there was an NBC poll, I believe, this morning that said, 70% of Americans don't want him to run again. 51% of Democrats, probably the same poll you were referencing, where 47 said okay. 51% said he shouldn't run again. And I was watching Jonathan Capehart show, as part of prepping for this show, and they had April Ryan, who leads Democrat. She's a reporter, but she's clearly on the Democratic team, and Michael Steele, former Republican National Committee chair. And April Ryan was saying the same stuff that Bill Maher and I hear out of so many Democrats. She's like, well, maybe it's an image thing. He needs to, maybe she even suggests he needs to wear the aviators more often to appear younger. And she's going through all this stuff. Michael Steele is damn near laughing out of his chair. Finally, it's his turn. He's like, that's what's wrong with y'all Democrats, because you need to stop window shopping. This guy's done a tremendous job. He's done everything he said he's going to do. And on the other side, you've got a whole pack of crazy. You've got Trump, or DeSantis. And he could not understand what the hell's wrong with Democrats. And neither do I. As Joe Biden has quoted, there are a few things that he quotes about 1,000 times, but this is one that sticks with me. Don't compare me to the almighty. Compare me to the alternative. So fine, you want to pitch a fit and, ooh, I wish I had somebody else running. Well, you don't. Okay. It's a binary choice. It's Joe Biden or it's somebody from the nut factory. Pick your side, take your side, but shut the fuck up. And I'm sorry, Bill, I've dropped a couple of F-bombs this morning, but I'm getting so sick of Democrats out there whining about, we wish we had somebody else. We wish we had, the next Barack Obama. We wish we had the next John F. Kennedy or this one or that one. You know what? You don't. You've got a guy who's pushing 80, but who is still getting it done. And it's kind of pathetic that the man gets more love in Ireland than he does here. Democrats, get over yourselves. Get on the bus, roll with the man, period, hard stop. And oh, by the way, carry that shit down ballot where he will have a positive effect there. Let's get the House back, keep the Senate, maybe expand it, and get some more shit done. And get Kevin McCarthy out of here. So that my only comment about Biden running again, good, because he's the only one right now, oh, by the way, that can get the thing done. So good that he's in. Democrats get on board or not, but shut up, please.
And now you're talking to one of those Democrats who's not going to shut up, but he is going to get on board. And you will know, you will recall from past episodes of this very podcast that I've been, should Joe run again? He's going to be mighty old. And, he's not pushing 80. He is 80. He's done the job now for 2.5 years. He could do another 5.5 standing on his head. I think he has demonstrated that the 8 years he served as vice president, the 30 years he served in the Senate, and now these 2.5 years as president, he can do the job. And, heartbeat away, it's Steve, we're all a freaking heartbeat away. So I'm saying today, I'm in. I'm in for the reelection. I'm in for all of it. Democrats have a bench. They do have a bench. They have a really good bench. And there is that next Obama figure that's out there. But it's going to reveal itself for the 2028 elections. And I think at this point, any other serious Democratic candidate out there, running would just serve to muck up the works. So in 2028, let's have that battle for the soul of the Democratic Party. Let's have the big scrum. Let's have another 15 candidates get in there. Moderates, progressives, liberals, conservatives, who knows? But right now, let's get on the Biden bus and let's get this man elected, because you're right. There is no other real alternative. We're going to talk about one of those alternatives who had a very bad month and in a minute. But, he's doing a good job. And, what are we going to say? Does he kind of go mumbles like this and then kind of just says, yeah, sure. That's his thing. He's allowed to have a thing. There's never been a president who didn't have a thing, or in the case of the prior one, about 8 things. So, it could be worse. He could be horny for porn stars. He could be, getting into Twitter fights. There could be, he has a crazy family member. We know this, but don't they all? We know what we got with him, and he's better than the alternatives.
And Bill, to be clear, now that I've gotten my rant out of the way, would it have been nice if a Harris or a Buttigieg or somebody else very early on, 21, early in 22, showed themselves to be ready for prime time and ready to take the mantle up from Joe Biden and actually win the thing? That would have been great. I've been a Biden fan for a long time. He's done his job for this country. I would have loved to have seen him say, you know what? There's somebody else out here that can take this thing over. I'm out. I would have loved to have seen that. But there's not such an animal right now, to your point. Now the Shapiros, the Moores, the Buttigiegs, the Harrises, the Whitmers, all those names, now they can start getting themselves geared up for 28 and making themselves ready for prime time. They're not ready for that stage yet. But now they know we can get ourselves ready for that stage by the time 2028 rolls around. But for now, let Biden hold it down.
I noticed I heard who you said in there. And yeah, I think that by 28, our own governor is going to be in that mix, no doubt. Yeah. But right now, Steve, let's switch to another governor on the other side. What the fuck? And see, you're a bad example. What the fuck happened to Ron DeSantis? A month ago, this guy was the bomb. He was the future. He was the one who was going to slaughter the king. And now he sucks. He's talking about building a prison next to Disney World because Disney World outsmarted him and told him to go pound sand with his little, his little move to screw Disney World over tax-wise. He signed this insanely crazy, 6-week abortion ban. He's just doing things that are just not even really resonating with the Trump red meat Republicans. And why is that? Because why go for an imitation when you can get the real thing? Steve, are we seeing here in the Ron DeSantis campaign, like, what is the Ron DeSantis campaign right now? Is he like the, I'm going to anger my progressive friends, but, is he like the Elizabeth Warren campaign of 2020 where everybody loves her and wants her to be elected, but then when it gets time to actually vote, well, I like her, but she's my second choice. She's my third choice. I'm going to go for Joe or Bernie. What are, is this, or better yet, the Kamala Harris campaign of 2020, great start, not so much of a smooth finish and didn't even make it to the first contested election. What do you think we're seeing here with this guy?
I think we're seeing living proof of one of my favorite quotes by, of all people, Michael Gerald Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Yes.
Everyone has a plan.
People I want to punch in the face, and I want to see their plan.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. Ron DeSantis just got punched in the face, ironically by Mickey freaking Mouse, and he got dropped. His glass jaw is not even Tiffany. It's some like fake shit you get from Bed Bath & Beyond. Ron DeSantis is the Marco Rubios of Scott Walker's. Okay, they look good. They look really good. And Bill, I'll throw one more thing out here because I don't know how many. We only have 5 episodes. I don't know how many more times we're going to get to wrestling. Ron DeSantis has not only proved himself not worthy of the main event, he's not even worthy of the mid card. He's one of those dark match jabronis who, after 5 minutes of no heat, the ref gets that call on his little earpiece saying, "Wrap it up." That's Ron DeSantis. Okay, he has proven, if nothing else, he is really good when he has a state where every politician is beholden to him, and he has things so jerry-rigged that he can get away with whatever the hell he wants to. But he stepped across the line and he got the smackdown. And the best part of the rapid decline and fall of the campaign that I think will be never was, because I don't even think he's going to get in at this point. I don't believe he will, is when a majority of the state delegation to Congress from Florida endorsed Donald Trump.
Right.
DeSantis went to Washington and sat down with some guy, I think from Texas. And as DeSantis is going to his car, dude puts out a tweet that says, "After a really good meeting with Ron DeSantis, I'm endorsing Donald Trump." I mean, so, he's a bum, okay? He is a whiny little twerp who, again, stuck his jaw out, got the smackdown, and is going to go back into his little hole in Tallahassee for a few years, hope that Donald Trump goes away, and that he can recover his rep in time to make a run in 28. That's who Ron DeSantis is.
Are you saying he's not going to run in 24?
I do not believe he runs in 24.
Oh, that is a bold prediction, sir.
I don't think he's going to run when he says he's going to run. Like he said, he's going to do something after the session's over. Now, the one thing DeSantis has in his back pocket is a butt ton of money, so he could afford to wait all the way up until early 24, and maybe Trump implodes, and there damn sure ain't anything else out there. Tim Scott, yeah, whatever. So he could wait. I don't think he will get in right after the Florida General Assembly's over. I think which is I think May or maybe early June when the session wraps up. Yeah, they wrap up. And the thought was, oh, he'll get in right after that. I don't think he does with these numbers. I think he just kind of chills out and sees what happens and sees if maybe there's some sign that Trump's going to cave in. But short of some sign that the Trump campaign is going to implode, no, DeSantis ain't going to take on Trump. He wants no part of that. Zero. None. Zilch. He'll stay around long enough to sell a few more books, and that's going to be that. And judging by the fact that Trump's gained momentum in the party since he got indicted, I don't see that implosion happening because Republicans are, unlike Democrats, we just talked about Biden, Republicans are all in with this guy, or at least a whole lot of them are.
Oh, yeah, and the rest of them will go and vote for him.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at, you mentioned Tim Scott. No. Nikki Haley. No. Mike Pompeo, probably not even going to bother. Kristi Noem, probably not even going to bother.
Oh, she's looking at VP.
Those two are going to angle for VP. Pence. And then you have the quintessential final anti-Trumper, except when he was a Trumper, and then he was an anti-Trumper, and then he was a Trumper again, and now he's an anti-Trumper again, Chris Christie.
There it is.
I mean, who, again, what did I just say about being an imitation as opposed to the real thing? So I think DeSantis is the only one who even would have a puncher's chance. And I mean, you mentioned Mike Tyson. I mean a Glass Joe's chance against Mike Tyson.
Not Glass Joe. The Glass Joe reference, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'd still like to think that he's going to enter the race just because, my God, do they have no balls in the Republican Party? But yeah, I can see where that won't happen. I could see where he'll say, I'm going to focus on Florida. I'm going to, do whatever. And that's just going to be the way it is. So it would be weird, but it would not be unprecedented. We've had people, beat their chests and say they're going to go for it, and then they don't go for it at all on either side. And then anybody else who's sitting in the back row, Glenn Youngkin or anyone like that, they're going to be like, no, just no. So, yeah.
No, it's Trump's Republican world, and that, as they say, is that. So yeah.
Well, let's talk about more of Trump's Republican world, and that would be Fox News. That mere minutes before the lawsuit against with Dominion went to court, voila, a settlement was announced, and Fox is paying, I believe, on the neighborhood of $787,500,000 to Dominion Voting Systems for the harm that was caused by Dominion by Fox News personalities spewing nonsense about the accuracy of the 2020 election and also the accuracy of Dominion's products. Steve, what do you think this learns, Fox? Anything?
No. Well, it might learn that there are limits to what you can get away with. And I think the only thing they may have learned is don't take on a private company that has the wherewithal to stand up to you. I mean, that's about it. I don't think it changes their behavior. I think I was reading recently that Fox, their balance sheet had like, $3 or $4 billion cash on hand. So, Fox got it like that. So I don't know that Fox learned a lesson. And the other thing, a lot of people were mad at Dominion, for doing the settlement, that they should have taken Fox to the mat, and they should have gotten Fox to, have all of their hosts on their hands and knees doing a mea culpas about how wrong they were. The people who were looking for that, I get it, because Fox is scum, but that wasn't what this case was about. Dominion was a business that was harmed. I mean, they were losing contracts. Their business reputation was taking big shots because of Fox News. And they were taking a big financial hit. And at the end of the day, and I've seen Dominion's lawyers and even the CEO try to talk about, well, no, they were looking to get paid. They got financially harmed and they were looking to be made whole. And that's okay. And that's what this case was always about. It was about one business saying, another business has done harm onto me, and we want to be compensated for said harm. It was never, I don't think it was ever about democracy for Dominion. I think that was maybe a sidelight that they used to win the court of public opinion, but it was about getting paid. They got paid. So, bully for them. But Fox, again, I think between this and what's the other one? Smartmatics, I think is the other case they have out there for a couple of billion. I think Fox's lesson is, don't take on somebody big enough, bad enough, who can hire good enough lawyers to call you on your shit. But they'll certainly still take on people like you and me, because, we're not bringing in a dream team to give them the smackdown. So, no, they didn't learn a whole lot except for who to pick on.
Yeah, I think they learned nothing. I mean, I think that they feel that, they're, they were able to make the case go away without having to roll out Laura Ingraham, Rupert Murdoch, Sean Hannity, Maria Bartiromo, Judge Janine, the rest of them, and make them say under oath, we're bums. We suck. We lie. We deceive the conservative public. We are shit. That's what they got away with being able to do. Probably, maybe, Dominion's not here to fight injustice. They're here to get compensation for their harm, and they feel they got it. That was the point of the court case. It was not to necessarily solve a bigger issue, but that is the issue that could have been addressed had the case actually gone to trial. So what Fox learned is that they can continue to say and do whatever they want to say who they do, and as long as they pay a price, they can get out of it. It's just like some asshole who doesn't pay their child support. You don't pay your child support, in pretty much every state in this nation, after like 90 days, you lose your driver's license. After a longer amount of time, you could be held criminally culpable and you could be brought back into court, and you could, you could even get tossed in the pokey in many a state. But, so these deadbeats, they're, because they're withholding support because they want to teach their ex a lesson, or they're angry with their kid or whatever. Then they stand up and fly right, because, now they went into the gray area and they're like, ooh, now I showed you, I proved a point. They proved no point. Fox proved very little point. Fox proved no point, but, like the deadbeat dad, they're going to do it again. They'll do it again. Rest assured, they're going to do it again in 2024, because Fox is an arm of Trump. And it was Trump who was yelling and screaming about the 2020 election being bogus, and Fox parroted it. And do we not think that Trump won't do the same thing all over again? Of course he will. And he's going to lose worse next time.
Mm-hmm.
and and it probably will take the House of Representatives with them. I just don't see. I just don't see. And the last thing I'll say about it is that the unfortunate thing is Fox can make that money back,
Oh yeah.
and they will. So I wish I could say that they learned even a little something, but I don't think they did.
No, and especially we talk about businesses and business models. Their business model is now based on peddling the Trump MAGA line because they now have Newsmax out there, they have OAN out there, they've got hell the social media out there. They're not going to turn into CNN. They're damn sure not going to turn into MSNBC anytime soon. So they're stuck. So you're right. If you think they're going to change and watch all of their viewers go to Newsmax, OAN, or wherever, that ain't happening. So yeah, their business model is to keep doing it. And you're right. They'll make that 787.5 or whatever it is. They'll make that back this year probably because the advertisers ain't going anywhere. So yeah.
I'm pretty sure legal losses are written off on balance sheets anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. There's some accounting trick that's going to make that not hurt them as much as that number would indicate.
Right.
I'm sure.
Steve, you wanted to bring up the next topic.
Yeah. It's the thing that is just, maybe it's been out there, but when you have four, and I think there might have been a fifth one in a 1 week period, it certainly calls to mind that we have a real issue. And yes, we're talking about guns. So those folks out there watching or listening, I'm going to try not to lecture, but this is newsworthy where you have multiple incidents where people are getting shot for no other reason but being in the wrong place. It started with the young man, I believe he's like 16 years old, picking up his siblings, knocked on the wrong door, and got shot at, got hit twice. Thankfully, he's okay. Unfortunately, a young woman who I think was 20 or 21 hurt her friends in rural New York. The first one, I believe, was in Kansas City. You then had the rural New York case where friends were looking for a party, got lost, went up a driveway to turn around. On their way back out, guy comes out, shoots at the vehicle, and hits the young woman. She was not so lucky. She died. You then had the cheerleader, her and her friends coming out of their training facility. They pull on the wrong car. And Bill, how many times have you left the mall or somewhere and there are two cars that look like yours and you walk up to the wrong one? I know I have. Well, these young ladies got shot at for their troubles. I believe they might still be in the hospital. I can't remember. And then there was a fourth incident where a young girl was playing basketball with her parents. The ball rolled into a neighbor's yard. They go get the yard, and she gets shot at in the cheek. And it's just I don't even have the words for how crazy this world is, and how crazy this country is. But to me, it really is. This is what you get when you have a nation that is armed to the teeth, that in recent years in many places passes laws like these stand your ground laws that give you permission to shoot first and ask questions later. And some people who, like the guy in Kansas City, his family has said, he's been fed full of, Fox News and conservative media, and he sees non-whites as the other and threats, and he believes that, Black Lives Matter were a bunch of thugs. So basically his probably natural racism was amped up and fed into by, the conservative entertainment complex, as I like to call them. So now you have these people who are fed this garbage who are armed. And, people talk about, it's become the wild, wild west. Well, as Stallone said in, I believe, Demolition Man, the Wild West wasn't that wild. I mean, hell, in the Wild West, when you went into town, you had to put your guns away. You now have states where you can just conceal carry. And I think 2 days ago, I saw a case where a guy was threatening a meat counter because they were closed and he had to have his steak. So he pulled out a gun. So we now have people who shouldn't have them, but get them too easily. And I don't know what the answer is, but I just felt the need to call it out that thank God we live in Maryland where we have some common sense politicians who are doing things that strike a balance between, preserving those Second Amendment rights as they were originally written, not as they've been bastardized, with public safety, not only for citizens, but for the police the people who want gun safety more than anybody else are cops because they're tired of being outgunned like the guys going into schools with, crazy people who have better artillery than they do. So, Bill, I don't know what your thoughts are. I just want to throw that out there. It's just a nut. We are living in a bit of a nut house in this country, and other countries have mental illness, and other countries have people with problems. Other countries don't go through this. Why? Because in other countries, you can't walk to a store in the morning, get a gun, and do damage by noontime. Period. Hard stop. So,
Steve, inform the public. Were all of these cases of these shootings ones where the gun user was Caucasian and the gun victim or victims were not Caucasian?
The North Carolina case with a little girl, no, she was white, and I believe the shooter was black or Hispanic, but a person of color.
Right.
The rest of them, and I believe the cheerleader case, I believe the gentleman was a person of color. The Kansas City case with the guy at the door, that shooter was white. Victim was person of color. New York, in the car, the young woman was white, and the shooter was white.
So we have two disturbing things. One, we have the continuing story of being a person of color and existing. The Kansas City case is especially striking because I believe the victim was like a 16-year-old kid. Yep. And the guy was 85 and crusty and looked like he might actually be Ed Anger, who wrote the column My America for the Weekly World News. I mean, if Ed Anger was a real person, it would have been this guy. But, and so much has been said about that. And so we've talked about this so much on our podcast. I don't know what else I can say about it anymore. It's wrong. And it's very clear to anybody except somebody in the highest levels of denial and ignorance that gun violence is disproportionately cast towards people of color.
Yeah.
So that's one thing.
Yep.
But I think what we're also having is maybe, and I hope it's not, I hope we can retire this podcast on May 28th without ever having to do a special episode about this crap. But there's something even more disturbing going on, which is people thinking that they can adjudicate whatever personal issue goes on in their lives through the use of handguns.
Yeah.
Or through any violent means. And I mean, I think I may mention before, I said, there are certainly a couple people I would like to punch in the face. We all have personal situations. I'm in the midst of one of them where I have a really strong disagreement and a really strong problem with somebody I don't even know. I don't even know the person, but I don't like what they've done it affects my life, and really contemplating how to address it with that individual, or if I do, or if I just let time, work its magic and let that person be removed from my life. But there's no part of me, that wants to go get a handgun and go figure that I'm going to settle this dude's hash.
Yeah.
There's no part of that. That is not reasoned discourse. That is not how you problem solve in this world. That is not how you come to terms. We should be, as a country, doing things to bring ourselves together. I get, and I've said before, you've heard me say this before, I get why people want to own guns. I get why they want to for sporting purposes. I get why they want to do it for home protection. Because sometimes the cops just aren't going to be there quick enough.
Sure.
And if there's somebody in this house, in the house, and God bless, if it's even in my house, and that person's in my bedroom or they're down the hallway threatening somebody I love, if it's me or them, I better be armed.
Right.
But it's not what you do when the guy comes up to your door and says, "Hi, I'm in the neighborhood this weekend. I just signed up to redo the roof of your neighbor, Mr. So-and-so, down the street on Stevens Forest Road." You don't brandish your pistol and say, "Get off my property." You don't do anything to that person. And as part of the continuation of the ignorantizing of America, we are seeing where this sort of behavior is okay.
Yeah.
And it used to be. I mean, my God, are we talking about the glory days of wanton gun violence when we were talking about, jogging while black? Or I thought this person was going to rob me, or I thought they were a person who was going to do me harm, or I thought they were somebody who I knew who hated me. And now it's not even jogging or walking or looking threatening or scaring me. It is just existing. It's a basketball goes into the yard. It's, I didn't get my way.
Right.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
I mean, how can we as a culture be so keen on developing artificial intelligence when we need to do so much work on the real thing?
I hear you. Yeah. Oh, and meantime, Bill, in the middle of all of this, the NRA had held their annual convention where basically they said, we ain't doing nothing about it. In fact, we don't have enough guns out there. And who attended that convention one by one at a cattle call? Every Republican candidate for president. And they all said the exact same thing. Whatever you guys want, if we're president, we'll give it to you. Trump, DeSantis, all of them rolled in there. I think it was Indianapolis to basically say, yes, NRA, we will do your bidding no matter what.
Yeah, that's the NRA that recently declared bankruptcy, right?
Indeed, it is.
Because there are a bunch of imbeciles. And so let me tell you something about the NRA. I mean, when I started reading comic books in the 70s, I remember on the back of comic books, there used to be ads, and the ads were from athletes like, Dr. J and Rick Barry, telling you to
the cartoon. The cartoons with Dr. J. Oh, those were awesome. I used to love those.
They were great. Like they were for like Ovaltine or for like something healthful. That helps me work on my 30-foot jumper and all this shit from Rick Barry.
Dr. J with the dunks. Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah. And I also remember Johnny Unitas, with his sons, and BB guns. And the BB gun ads were co-sponsored by the National Rifle Association. And then I remember seeing things from the National Rifle Association where they taught people how to use handguns. They let people, qualify for permits to hold handguns. Whatever state you're in, if you would like to use a gun, we can help you. We can educate you on how to use your gun safely and responsibly. And then the 80s came, and it was Katie bar the door. And so, that's where the NRA still is. They're still there. You can't get me started on gun violence because gun violence choice, voting rights is now becoming one. There are these issues that are little mini industries in the grander industry of politics and our political culture. Environmental issues are another one. Use of fossil fuels, alternative energy, energy in general, and there's just such a huge industry built up about creating chaos and creating and about not solving the issue. It's much more better for business if the issue is not solved than if it is. And the NRA is right in there.
Yep.
For want of a better word, I kind of believe that some of our anti, gun rights organizations are also in there. Same thing's true of choice. But don't get, I can't even with the NRA. I can't, no one can look to the NRA and look for them to be helpful at all. They're just not going to be. They suck.
Yeah. Well, I love the word you used there, Bill, industry, because I think you're absolutely right. I think some of these, there used to be like special interest groups who were part of coalitions. I think you're right. They've become industries onto themselves. So I when you said that word, that hit me pretty hard. I was like, he's right. It really has become a business. It really has. And a big one at that. So, yeah. Well said, sir.
Last topic for the day. On a much better note, Steve, Friday night I was in Baltimore, and wow, there was so much going on downtown. I was at the Chicago concert on Pier 6. Yay me.
Yep.
Adam Sandler was a few blocks up at the Baltimore Arena, now called the CFG Arena, doing a concert, doing a show. And a few blocks past there, the Orioles were at Camden Yards opening up a series against the Detroit Tigers, which they won in walk-off fashion Friday night and the bottom of the ninth. And as I stood there on the lawn of Pier 6 watching the band and walked around the premises, and the slightly cool night breeze, blew around, I was like, Baltimore's a really, really happening place tonight. There's a lot going on. Now, there's also a lot of bad stuff that's going on in Baltimore City. We know this. We know about the murders. We know about the gun violence. We know about the drug issues. We know about, human trafficking issues. We know that the school system is moribund. We know that there's a lot that's not to be happy about in Baltimore City. But for one night at least, the city was a really cool place to be. And if it would occur to me that to get people to start to have faith in Baltimore City again, you have to give them a reason to come. And those three events that night probably drew about 60,000 people into the city, the same as the Ravens game roughly. And they gave people reason to come. My question, Steve, is, do you think this is part of an organized plan? Because it doesn't seem like it. It seems like it all happened accidentally. I mean, the Orioles are the Orioles. They're an institution. The arena, that was something from Baltimore City. Pier 6, that's that's a long-standing thing. But I know that there's also Baltimore tourism. We see Brandon Scott, the mayor. He's always there when there's like a shooting or there's something bad going on, and he's always crowing. I've never seen this guy go away from a camera. But is there a plan that somebody has in place, and is it working?
I don't see any signs of a plan. I think you're right. It's much more organic. Different groups, are doing different things to create some of these good vibes and good situations that you're talking about. Maybe, Mayor Scott should get away from a camera for a minute or two and gather the chamber and the tourism to come up with a plan, because you're right. This has the same potential that, the harbor, the Inner Harbor, Camden Yards opening, eventually the stadium, M&T, which, by the way, other good news, the Ravens and M&T Bank, they've extended their relationship. But because there is a lot of good news. You talked about the Chicago concert with the Orioles going on. It was really cool. A couple of weeks ago, I was reading on social media how the night of an Orioles game, and it might have been their home opener because of when it was going to happen, was in question. Why? Because Springsteen was playing that night. And I saw clips of Orioles players after the game going to the concert. And so you had an Orioles game right behind that. You had Springsteen. I know Trevor Noah's coming to Baltimore on his tour. It was supposed to be this spring, but he backed the tour up. It's going to be next January, I believe. So you've got that. I mentioned the Ravens. Hey, last night, Tank Davis, Baltimore's own, won a big fight out in Las Vegas. The Orioles are really showing potential. Those young kids are really starting to come into their own, and now veterans are wanting to come here. The Ravens just got Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, the Lamar situation's still out there. I know, but and I was even reading recently that the minor league organization, well, it used to be the minor league organization for Major League Soccer. I think it's the USL, I believe it is.
Yeah.
They have parted ways, and the USL, as part of their expansion, is talking about putting a soccer team in Baltimore. So, I could go on and on about some of the good stuff happening. But you're right. There are some areas that you mentioned, but just from a tourism and an attraction, Harbor Place, still something needs to be done about that. It right now is just, it sticks out like a sore thumb. That old area of, I think it's mostly empty now, if not 100% empty. There's the Pimlico situation that still needs to be worked out long term to make sure that major racing, Triple Crown racing stays in Baltimore. I live in Laurel, but as much as I love Laurel, I would prefer it to stay in Pimlico. So I wish there were an organized plan that, and maybe there is, and we just haven't seen it. But there's a lot of good stuff happening in Baltimore. I mean, hell, the Wizards are playing several games in Baltimore every year now. The Caps, I believe, are.
That's never happened. What are you talking about? The Wizards are playing in Baltimore.
I believe they play some games in Baltimore now. Like
that stopped happening like 30 years ago, dude. That stopped happening when they opened up the downtown arena.
I thought they came up here for like preseason games or something.
Not in many years.
Okay, I
don't
thought they
bullshit me, you Wizards fan. I don't want keep your damn team down there. Y'all didn't want Baltimore. Stay away.
But so there's there's a lot going on.
How y'all doing in the playoffs?
Well, our former #1 draft pick is doing really well in Los Angeles. Hachimura became a basketball player as soon as he left town. But please don't get me started on.
Don't they all?
Yeah, yes, they do, Bill. There you could probably put up a good starting five of Wizard alumni who are in the playoffs and not in Wizards jerseys. Okay, so. But yeah, your point is well taken, Bill. There's a lot of good stuff going on. I wish there were a plan. If there is somebody, please tell us what it is, because there's a lot of potential to leverage some of the good stuff going on. And we've had McCartney at Camden Yards. I think Billy Joel's been there. I mean, big time entertainers and events. I forget which term it is. I don't know if it's the MEAC or the CIAA. They came to Baltimore a few years ago. They just re-upped because the league has said Baltimore has been good for us, so we're going to continue to do our tournament in Baltimore. So, yeah, there's a lot going on, and
yeah,
hopefully that continues.
Yeah, I know several episodes back, I remember the last time we had to talk about Baltimore City, a thing I said was, you have to worry about the city falling prey to the bottom feeders. The people just looking to keep a quick buck. And it actually looks like the opposite is happening. It actually looks like there are legitimate business interests who are outcomes oriented, who are interested in making a name, who are interested in doing their next big thing. And they see Baltimore as having potential for that, as an untapped market. And that's awesome. A couple of the things you mentioned, I mean, the Pimlico funding is still there. I believe the Moore administration said recently in the Baltimore Sun that, they're looking at it. They're interested in keeping the Preakness there, but, they also realize that, there was the pandemic that happened, and that's part of the reason why the funding hasn't moved. But then there's also more, no pun intended. So, more to, again, no pun intended, more to come there. With respect to Harbor Place, there was a new developer that was selected for Harbor Place, and I believe they're going to be putting together a plan for the Baltimore City Board of Estimates, just like Oak Lawn Development did. The developer for CFG Arena, put forth a plan about what the vision for downtown retail is going to look like. And then we have Port Covington, and that development keeps going and keeps mushrooming every time I go there. It seems like there's another building that's being started on. So there are good things happening in Baltimore City. Oh, and the last thing is, there's been talk that in future years of the Moore administration that the Red Line could be picked up and taken off the table, either for federal funding or that the state may fund some sort of, starting of the Red Line, possibly updated, since it's been 10 years. So it seems like there are things in the offing, and it seems like they are coming organically. And so it's a good time for Baltimore City. It's a good, but it's also a thing where the challenges have to be met. I'm of the belief that Baltimore City's challenges are not unlike any other city's challenges, but Baltimore City has been uniquely unqualified to meet those due to a smaller tax base. So, maybe bringing all this stuff in, having all this stuff, of course, Port Covington was done under TIF financing. So that's, that's going to very much restrict the amount of taxes that come out of there. But hopefully this is, you got to start somewhere. Hopefully this is the start of that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Because, Baltimore is so well located. And there's so many jewels. I recently was at I went to an orchestra concert. It was actually a Star Wars thing. I won't get into it, but it was really cool that they did it. But it was at the Meyerhoff. Been to the Hippodrome. There's some really nice venues. You mentioned seeing Chicago at the Pier. There's some really nice venues. Baltimore is really well located. The places where a lot of these things go on are very convenient. Whether you're north or south. So, hopefully somebody leverages it, because Baltimore is a great town. It really, really is.
There's great restaurants. There's a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot to be proud of in Baltimore City. So out there in viewerland and listenerland, if you get a chance to do something in town, do it. Steve, we are now down to 5 left, man.
Yep, we are.
We're down to 5.
And Bill, if I could do a quick shout out, former guest of the show, Bill Santos, he was on talking about the situation at Columbia Associations. I knowing Bill personally as you do, he was debating whether or not to run for re-election for the Columbia Association Board of Directors. He chose to run, and he won. I don't know some of the other results. Maybe you can tell us what happened over in the village of Oakland Mills, but Bill won in Wild Lake. So I just want to send a shout out to our friend Bill Santos and congratulations. And I believe he was the only incumbent up for re-election. So he'll be involved in the selection of a new president. So Bill, congrats and good luck.
Yeah, Oakland Mills won't be posting anything until the 28th because of mail-in balloting, and it's okay to postmark a ballot by the election day, which is today, and so forth. So no, nothing there. And I don't really know anything about any other results anywhere else in town, but that's okay. So everybody, thank you for joining us again today. For Steve Hunt, my name is Bill Woodcock. You have been watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. Have a terrific day, everybody. Take care.